We are back. Yes, yes, yes. So today we're back with the Higher States show slash podcast, and we had a break for, well, half a year or longer, as yeah, the current transition in my life, in my personal life, and I think also partly in Roger's life, caused us to refocus and reinvent some things and to start anew. And how I want to start is to ask Roger, like, Roger, what do you think caused this break? Like, why do you think, what do you think, why did I need it in order for me to now have more clarity, and the inspiration today to restart the podcast?
Because you needed to be a hermit for a little while. When we go inside ourselves, when we're moving through a big transition in our lives or in the world, we need to take some time to be alone. And I've done so much of that. Most of my life is I've been a hermit. And so I recorded a video a while ago while I said why I spent several days in a dark room. When we can go inside and figure out who we are, then we reach another level of our existence, and that's why you have more clarity, because you gave yourself time to integrate what you have experienced, what you have learned, and what wisdom you can bring to the world now. And that is the process that we all move through. And I said it's funny because I just recorded before we were going to talk. I just recorded a video saying there's only one challenge that we will face in life, only one, and that is us becoming our authentic selves. And that's a continual journey because we're never done. And then we have these breaks and go, okay, now I understand who I am. Now let me go to the next level. And then when you keep going through those levels, you reach this place where, oh, wow, I really understand who I am now. Let me be happy. Explain what you were feeling for why
What
you're.
do you think, what do you think, let me ask this question because you mentioned integration
Mhm.
and the transformation that I went through in the last 3 years. I mean, the people who are following the podcast and who watched what I'm talking about, like after the car accident 3 years ago, I shifted dramatically and rapidly as well. And so many things happened, and I moved forward, 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 forward. Like for someone who is moving forward that fast, like why is especially the integration part so important?
Because we will be afraid. And this is what we're experiencing now. We are There's a great movement happening in the world, and everyone's moving through it in different ways. And so it depends on where anyone is on their evolutionary journey. But the world is moving through this. And it's so fascinating you're talking about this now or asking, because this is the talk that I'm going to do when I go to Gaia and on George Nuri's show, Beyond Belief, because this is the information that came to me that we were going to be moving through these changes, and so we're going to ascend. And that is always uncomfortable, no matter when we're living or who we are, because there's always more we can do. So we have to go into this unknown of who we are. The world is going to this unknown, and we don't understand what's happening. Except when we decide to shift our energy, we deal with anything in a much better way. And this is why you need a time away to regather your internal energy, and then you come back and you have more clarity. Wilhelm gave us a message in 2012 about cycles, meaning we will always have them. We will move through them. And then they said at the end, there's nothing better than having a great cycle after you move through a difficult one.
Mm. So what has the integration part to do with the physical body? Like, I mean, like we gather lots of information, we have information accessible all day long. Like we just have to get our phone out. And like but what has this to do with like
The
the
physical body.
physical body?
It feels like you We didn't plan this, by the way, anyone who's listening, because this just happened. We're
It's
talking
coming
about
spontaneously. Yeah, it just comes out,
this is
but
just,
it's good.
but
So
but this is
it's an important topic. Yeah.
this is the other thing that I'm going to talk about on the George North thing about physical healing. Because when we become aligned with who we are, our journey, our authentic selves, then the universe said, "Oh, great, we're going to take away a little bit of those physical things you've been going through.
Hmm.
We're going to give you a little more peace, a little more rest." And I can say this because this is what's happened for me. And I just want people to understand I've been through more physical difficulties and illnesses and crazy things. And then to be at this, I'm 73 and they're gone. And I'm just going to say that because I couldn't say it so much before because people think, no, that's not possible. And I need people to understand what is possible because it's only, no matter when, let's talk about consciousness. No matter when we live, we are operating with limited consciousness because it either is within us or it hasn't been developed in the world yet. So we haven't seen a new way of doing something. We haven't experienced someone who has done something that we couldn't, and now we have a little more inspiration and we know we can do it as well. What I did the other day, and sometimes it takes a while. I don't know if you know this, but a few days ago, I decided to release my Akashic Records reading. It's been 3 years. I mean, it's been almost 4 years, but I said I'm not going to show the whole thing. But I thought, no, I got to be completely authentic now. That's the place where we have to move to. And so I'm not going to be afraid of that. And so now people are watching that and saying, oh, this resonates. Michelin last night, she says, oh my gosh, that was so powerful. Now I understand why you're doing the work you're doing. See, but I couldn't trust that at first. This is why I had the reading. We will doubt ourselves because we're going to always doubt ourselves, actually, because there's always more we can do. And I'm looking at myself now and thinking, wow, I've done all of this, but how much more can I do? How long could I possibly live now that I keep healing and getting better? How much more could I possibly create? And that's the kind of unlimited thinking. When we have it, we reach different dimensions of our being.
Hmm. Right. You know what I came, what what entered my mind when you were telling this just now is right, like the physical body, and I mean we are information. We are consciousness.
Mhm,
And a few years ago, also like 3.5 years ago, I was just telling this story to a friend the other day. I was sitting on a festival in front of the stage, and I
mhm,
had to work through some severe mental issues and unclarity and messed up thoughts. And I was sitting there for hours, felt like hours,
mhm,
meditating right in front of like around thousands of people.
mhm,
But why am I doing this? Spirit moved me to do it. But I
mhm,
was sitting there and I felt like how my body was reacting to the thoughts that I had or to the things that happened around me, and how I got like electric impulses in my fingers, in my legs, in my
mhm,
stomach, in my head, even. And I started deciphering, and I'm still on it. This is why I don't talk too much, why I won't talk too much about it right now, because I'm still processing, I'm still integrating, and it's a lot of information that I bring clarity on through writing, through talking about it, and the new experiences that arise. But I became aware of like the masculine and feminine dynamics through that,
mhm,
right? The left part of the body, when something was moving in the left part, like I knew it has to do with the feminine aspect
mhm,
of it, of life itself, and the right part with the masculine part. And this kind of amazes me and fascinates me how my thoughts and my body are connected. If you talk about the self-healing and the things that you've went through, like would you say that the new perspective that you gained along the way with the experiences that you had caused then a shift because your consciousness shifted?
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe that your body shifted because of that as well?
Yes, because I spent 30 years hiding from myself. And see, that's when you have all the physical things going on, when you can't embrace who you are. And I've talked about this, but I'm going to give you just really quickly. I suffered from cluster headaches, and anybody who knows what those are, you can research them. They're the most horrible, painful thing on the planet. And they had the nickname of the suicide headache, because when you're moving through them, you don't want to live. And I had to do that I didn't have to, it's what I experienced for decades, over 30 years, but they would come and go. And then I decided, why is this happening? Let me ask some new questions here. Because there weren't any medications I could do to do it. I wanted to figure out, why am I experiencing this? And it came down to, I was just ignoring who I was. And I've been doing it for so long. I've been doing it for most of my life. And then they tell you that there's no cure for these headaches. And I said, yes, there
Mm,
is, because I found it. Because what I
mm,
did was practiced stop running. I practiced coming into the moment of now and just embracing who I was. Then the universe just said, okay, great. We'll let you out of that one. You don't have to have that. And that's exactly how it felt. It's like I was holding on to this, and that's where the pain was coming from, because wait a minute, there's this other aspect of me that wants to come through, and I'm not allowing that to happen. And I will say that for most illnesses, it's not everyone, because as Wilhelm says, that some people have different soul paths that they're following. But for most people, what Louise Hay wrote in her book, you can heal your life, she knew that as well. But she came to understand it because of what she had lived. And I'd done the same thing. But
mm,
I got to say something else about your festival, because what happened in that moment, because it was very clear, you were the reason that you couldn't understand what you were doing, why you stopped and meditated for that long. Your higher self said, we're going to give you some downloads here. And you're seeing all these people coming together, and you're knowing how you're supposed to integrate all of these, and you're knowing that male and female energies need to come together, and you were understanding that in that moment. And
mm.
that's what you came to, and this is what we're coming to understand in our world right now.
You're right. Like there was a part of me who knew exactly what it's doing.
Mhm.
And there's another part of me that tried to logically make an understanding out of it,
Yes.
but which is also possible to a degree. But yeah, there is some force. I think we can call it higher self,
Hmm.
who is guiding us to do those things to
Hmm.
gain that understanding that you were talking about. I want to talk about something different, what you've just mentioned, and this is this has to do with information that we receive from other people,
Hmm.
right? So you have the knowledge that you have because you've lived the experience, and you've mentioned Louise Hay
Hmm.
wrote what she wrote because of her experience, and she came to this understanding because of that. How important do you think is it that we learn from our experiences and that we look on how our experiences shaped us to the person that we are now, rather than looking for what other people do or what other people don't do, or even what a guru says,
Hmm.
right? It might be something smart, might be something Jesus said,
Hmm.
like whoever said something. But I want to bring it back to the internal. I want to internalize it and I want to bring it back to self. So
Perfect.
tell me, yeah.
Okay. People ask me about this all the time, and if you watch a Wilhelm session, they'll understand it. Because when I first started receiving Wilhelm, it was 1988, and I'm just writing it. I'm doing automatic writing then. But it was so crazy, because how do I know that this is real? How do I know that it's making sense when I'm hearing? Because we're just in our consciousness. That's all that happens. But I knew it was different because it wasn't coming from me. It was a different kind of voice. It was different kind of information. It never felt judgmental. It never felt any of those things. It just felt like it was this energy. Now, I didn't remember it all either. I'm just receiving it and writing it down. And so that's what's happening when I'm doing a channeling session and someone asks a question, and instantly I have that information because we have infinite intelligence. This is the other thing that Wilhelm had given us. We have infinite, all of us. Whatever intelligence exists in the world, we have access to it. And we get that through our consciousness. Now we're going to access that information that is appropriate for our journey, our life journey at the right time. But it doesn't mean that it's not there. And so this is why meditation and mindfulness allows us to get out of our everyday minds and receive different information. I did that. That's what I was doing for all of these years. And and then so you want to see, well, does it work? Does it make a difference? Yeah, because that's the only way that I could have done what I've done or lived and healed and all of that. But then the other thing is, and this is so hard to say to people because they'll look at their lives and they'll think, well, I can't change anything. I can't heal. I can't find the right relationship. I can't do any of that stuff. And all they're doing is saying they can't do it instead of taking the effort to figure it out and do some. And I can say this because I've been talking about the work, in the program. I've been talking about all of that. And I will say to people, you can change your life. You can have the life you want. You can become happy. You can heal. And they will look at that and say, no, it's not possible. And then they will hear other people saying what's happened. And the same thing happens. That's not a bad thing. We just have to recognize, because I've done it so many times in my life, so I understand. But we have to recognize that the only thing we're doing is being afraid of owning ourselves. That's all.
Hmm. Hmm. I had to own myself as well. Like, I mean, I'm back in Germany for, I just realized it, 6 months. And, and it was like, zack,
Mhm,
there it is. And it was a big shift that happened. And I had to accept my new situation. I had to accept the I had to accept myself and where I am and who I am in all of this. And I started experimenting again with the old me and the new me and
mhm,
meeting old friends and meeting some new ones. And it's been very interesting having a job, going to work,
mhm.
and all of those things just to support myself and to evolve and to learn. And it's been fascinating, right? And this also played with in why I just haven't had, why I prioritized me in a different way without the podcast.
Mhm.
Because I had to observe and become aware and kind of adjust to my new surrounding. And the new surrounding, it's so like the surrounding and our environment
Yeah,
is so important, right? I see you have something on your tongue, so spit it
because
out.
I want to talk about this because I talk about different dimensions of consciousness. I put something out there the other day. I did a little video talking about none of us understand consciousness because see, we can't understand yours. And I'm just going to say it because you're saying things from for someone who's your chronological age that you have this wisdom and awareness that doesn't make sense to me. That I'm just going to say that that's just always been the case. I've told you that from the very beginning. I'm like, how do you know this? How do you understand this? It took me decades to figure this out. But that's because we're on different evolutionary paths. Everyone has one. And so it's we have to see the differences that you could come into the world at your age and start to understand things at a different level. What my Wilhelm told me is that the work that they gave me and what we're doing is to bring in a higher state of consciousness for humanity, for humankind. That's what's going on. Because the more of us who can let go of all the old
Mm.
stuff and that, then of course we have to give it to the new generation. And this is the movement that we're moving through right now in the world, which is why it's so feels a little chaotic. And we'll have more of that this year. But you're
Can
helping.
you talk, thank you. Can you talk about Christ consciousness and all of that?
About which?
Christ consciousness.
The Christ consciousness is what we all have. We just thought many people thought, well, let's just give it to Jesus. That'll make it easier. We don't have to do anything now. Oh, Jesus came and he did it all for us. That's never the case. It's all of us. He was a man just like we are, and then there were so many others. And what happens is they come in and they bring us information, and we will look at it again and say, no, that's not possible. This is why they were all so frustrated. This is why I've been frustrated. I get so anxious because I can sit and meet with someone and see every difficulty that's in front of them. That doesn't mean they're going to change it. Just and I somebody can sit with me and see all of mine as well because I need an outside something to look at me and say, Roger, you're off here. You're not doing that. That's we're all doing it. But until, and again, the whole philosophy of this work was saying why it came in now was that the world was going to go through this huge change. We have to each acknowledge that we have past, we have history, we have this a long past that was restricted somehow, that was limited, that did not serve our highest good or that of humanity. And so now we have this opportunity to change it if we decide to love who we are. That's every single person.
Oh yeah, let's love who we are. I
Yeah.
just turned down the light a little bit. Um, you know, let's talk about uniqueness
Hmm.
and all of that because I mean you say that what they gave you, your guides, or Wilhelm,
Hmm.
how we call it, how has this to do with I know you can build that bridge, so I just bring it. Uh, um, how do you connect this with Christ consciousness,
Hmm.
individuality,
Hmm.
and people?
We're all the same. That's all the
Oh,
same. It's all the same. You see, we're just accessing different aspects of that whenever we might happen to live. And then we're going to decide how much we're going to own ourselves. And then that will really reflect the type of life that we will live and what we will give to others. I talked about this the other day too. I want people to think about legacy. Because, see, we're moving through a period now where people are going to have to find theirs because it's going to look like, oh, wait a minute, these people have lost their moral compass. Well, we've lost ours too because
hmm,
we don't always know it. It's always developing. So we're going to find when I first started, and I'll just say this because when I first started, I'm receiving Wilhelm, and these are messages that I never published, but I'm going to start doing so much more because I'm going to bring back some of the older work. But they kept giving me information about ultimate reality. And I go, what is that? What does that mean? Because I'm just writing it down. I'm just receiving the information. And I kept getting to the place where that's when you move to this higher state of understanding within yourself where you don't see any judgment. You don't see that you did anything wrong. You don't see hatred or anger. You don't see any of that. It's this utopian place, but that's not something we move to, but it's something that we experience in our consciousness if we become willing to move there. But this is why ascension is challenging, because most times we don't want to look at ourselves. We don't want to look at the parts that we couldn't own or that we
oh,
judged
why is that?
because
Why,
we have
why
fear.
don't we? And why do we have fear, Roger?
It's instilled in our DNA.
Hmm.
It's just given to us. That's because William says
But who gave this to us? What
we did.
we did.
Yes,
Wow.
because we wanted to become more. We wanted to evolve.
Okay. They we wanted to challenge us.
Exactly. That's what I
Hmm.
just chat. I just wrote something about that too. I said that's the only challenge.
So did we create all of that
Yes,
in order to grow and evolve and to challenge us? Because if we knew everything already, it would be boring.
exactly. What you
Hmm.
just said, if every person, because that was so brilliant. See, because if we can think about that within ourselves and also within the world, because see,
Hmm.
that's what the world is doing now. We
Hmm.
shouldn't be seeing things that we're seeing. So that means somewhere we haven't gotten to the place where we understand either our importance or the importance of others. And so until we
Hmm.
come to this collective place of that, understanding the importance of every single human person, we're,
Hmm.
we just move through, we move through more evolving, let's say. And that's what we're doing. Just certain periods are a little more challenging than others, and the one we're in now is more challenging because there's a great galactic movement, so it means energy. We're all electromagnetic, so we're going to be affected by all of the energies.
Like galactic movement, Roger. I mean, this is a very broad realm that you've just entered there, and I think the listeners might be curious about that. Like, what can you tell us about the galactics, like the Palladians, the Arcturians, to name two, or I can even name
A lot
people
of
from
people, okay,
Sirius.
let me go back, because a lot of people won't even understand those terms. They won't understand any of that because it's this whole connection of things that we don't know. But we can bring it down to, if someone should just look at their astrology, how does that happen? You'll read something about your particular astrological chart or characteristics, and you're starting to go, wow, that seems to make sense. That seems like me. And I understand why I did that. Now, it's not going to be exact and it's not going to be detailed, but you feel something similar. Where did that come from? All the humans who had been on the earth who decided, let's put this information into, because people come into the earth at a particular time. They have a time code. They have astrological aspects that are happening in the
Mm,
universe at the time of their birth. They keep unfolding because that's part of the energy. It's a whole complicated field, but it's there, and every single person has one. And so then when you find your authentic path, you start to heal, you start to become aligned, you do the job that you came to the earth to do, because we all have one.
mm. Yeah, you know, all of the people who are into spirituality and they get ragged by all sorts of things. Like they get I think because I've observed it with myself that
Mhm,
when I'm too much looking for something external, like as an example, that just like the classic example, Mercury is retrograde,
mhm,
right? And everyone just thinks like, wow, Mercury again made this move. But what they forget is that it's in them.
mhm,
It's nothing external still. And I think this concept might be difficult to grasp from a logical standpoint. But can you try to explain how the planets and the constellations are also within you
mhm.
and that they're actually part of you?
Because it's energy. We everything in this universe, in this world, is energy. Our bodies, everything is energy. And so when you talked about Mercury retrograde, that's a great example because it is said that Mercury rules communication. And so people get
Mm,
afraid when that starts to happen because they expect certain things to occur, like you're going to miss appointments, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to do all of that, or someone's not going to understand you. Well, gee, so if that craziness is going on during Mercury in retrograde, that means you've been given something within your body to figure out, how am I going to get over this? How am I going to do something different? Or maybe I'm just going to use this time for reflection, just to go in. Maybe I don't need to be out in the world while that is happening. But it's always moments of reflection that we have within ourselves, and then there are planned ones in the universe, like moments of Mercury in retrograde, or
mm,
periods, I should say.
mm. I mean, you've said that we are moving through a galactic
Mhm.
shift.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
There are planets that are moving that haven't done it in a long time. And I talked about the United States because that's the first information that I started to get. And people are looking at why somebody wrote an article the other day and I saw it says, why is there so much anger in the United States? Which was so funny that I saw that. And I go, I knew this. This is what I was talking about. When the United States was formed, we had this great idea of creating everything great and equal because we were breaking away from an old system that had existed. And we thought that if we created a world that would be free and equal and given that to everyone, then everything would be great. But then we spent 248 years not doing that. We didn't live up to it. We tried. We did little bits of it. It would move along and we made some progress here. We made a little more here. but we didn't fully get there. So then we came into this period where Pluto started to change again. And when it changes, you have a reckoning. When you go through any kind of a return in astrology, basically, it's about looking at things in a different way. No human has experienced Pluto return. A country can, and that's what's happening. And so,
Not that we know of, at least, but there might be some human out there who is 250 years old.
there could be.
I think there is one, but it's just me.
But this is why. And so now, when you think about of this reckoning, and we're all of our ancient memories and beliefs and ideas are coming up, and we're all coming up together, then we're going to have conflict because we see duality. And so we
Mm.
have to move over duality.
Oh, Roger, I've just read something about me that I'm here um to to how do I say it in English? To break up duality,
Yes,
or to kind of get away with it.
yes.
How do I say it in English? You
You
have better.
to to move beyond it, to move
To
beyond.
move beyond
Yes.
duality, that's the right
And
word.
so there
Yeah.
will be certain people like you who will understand that. And this is why you have a great responsibility to bring that information to the world. Everybody's not going to
Mm,
understand it. And this is
mm,
why we'll see and feel and experience the intense changes. However, when we uplift our individual vibrations, meaning owning who we are, then we can add to the collective change in the world. And Wilhelm said this in the last channeling session, the planets are going to keep changing. It's just going to keep happening. What happens as humans, we decide how we're going to deal with it. And we're
mm,
going to either go into, and they said this, there's something I put out a while ago, we will go into love or fear. And we're going into fear when we refuse to accept or understand who we are. And we go
mm,
into love when we decide, oh, I'm going to accept and move into the next higher version of who I'm meant to become.
Responsibility. You just brought me back to a moment 3 years ago in a hostel, almost 3 years ago in a hostel,
Mhm,
where I've just had some strange and weird telepathic communication with a dude who was just cooking for the entire hostel in the hostel kitchen. He just had a mission.
mhm,
And he did this every evening. He was just standing there for hours in the kitchen and cooked
mhm,
for everyone. And we kind of exchanged some eye contact and few words, but it was mostly telepathic. It was very electric in between him and me.
mhm,
And he looks at me and he says, "You have lots of responsibility."
mhm,
And I'm like, yeah,
mhm.
uh,
And that I no,
yeah.
I want people to
And this is,
understand you that was aligned. People will
yeah.
just pop into your life and say something to you, and you're like, "What?"
Mm.
People have had that one.
And
Had it.
this is the I won't say the unexplainable, but this is the thing that is beyond the words. This is
Right,
the truth behind everything.
right.
That is felt, that is in confirmation, that is an inner knowing, that your entire being just resonates and knows it. And I've experienced many of mystical things that allowed me to shift my consciousness, that allowed me to see that there is more to life than what I've been told in school or from parents or friends, family, whoever, most of the people.
Mm-hmm,
And there is a there is the magic in between everything. And those eye contacts with certain people, or you think of someone and someone pops up, or me sitting in a meditation in Bali
mm-hmm,
and a friend of mine comes into my energy field
mm-hmm,
who I've met the first time 2 months ago.
mm-hmm,
Synchronistically, she's in a hotel on the other side of the river in Bali. I didn't even knew she was there. The next day, I go into the cafe. I didn't know that she were coming. If we didn't text it about that, and we just walk into each other and we look at each other like thousands kilometers away from we've met first. And we look at each other, and there was this inner knowing and confirmation of things. And I just wanted to bring this back in to give another example on the magic of life and this
Yes,
mystical experiences that I still like. I understand it. There's an inner and part of me that understands it, and there's another part of me who thinks like, what the fuck is going on? Like,
that's the
and there are
part.
those two talking to each other in
And
my
that's
head.
the part that we must move beyond our disbelief. We have to become, and logical thinking never helps us when we're growing in our consciousness. It just doesn't, because we're supposed to move beyond whatever kind of thinking existed before. And so I told one of the story, this came through in a channeling session. I talked about my thermostat because see, I it would be annoying because sometimes, oh, it's on and now it's getting too hot, now it's getting too cold, or whatever it might have been. And then all of a sudden I would go to walk to it to make an adjustment, and before I could get there it would turn off. It was the
Mm,
weirdest, and it kept happening. And then I started laughing because I knew that if I got up to go to walk to it, it was going to do something. And then during a channeling session, Wilhelm said, "Yeah, that's your grandmother doing that." And I said, "That makes no sense." But I said, "Okay, I'm going to just choose to believe that now." And so it happened
mm,
again today. And I had to laugh because it was on and it was like, okay, no, I don't need this on now. Let me get rid of it. And I get up to go move it. And just right in that moment, it turned off. And I just laugh because that I'm believing that was the power of my thoughts. Whether it came from my grandmother or not, it was a power that we control energy with the way we use our thoughts, and it also comes with how much we believe. There was something that was in a
let me jump in there because thoughts and emotions and
mhm,
manifestation.
mhm.
Talk about that.
Thoughts and in manifestation.
And with the thought,
Yeah.
the emotion which manifests. Let's
Yes.
talk about that.
Okay, so let's say we have a thought and it's going to feel a particular way to us. We're going to allow it to do something that's an energetic thought. And again, well, I'm saying we have focused attention. So we take that thought, if we want it to come into fruition, and then we put our attention on it with our thoughts, and then that magically puts energy into the universe that can start the manifestation if we don't stop it. And see, because what we
Mm,
usually do is we stop it with our disbelief, because we'll have the thought, I want to create that, but then the next
and it feels great, right? The emotion says like
yes,
it's that kind of like expansive excitement.
yes. And then we
Yeah.
say no, and then we'll stop it. And that's
Mm.
the difficult,
Because I'm too young, I'm too old, I'm
right?
too this,
Whatever it
I'm not
is.
ready for this now, like maybe tomorrow.
Yes. And I,
Yeah.
and you know,
I've had this with the podcast, right? Like I received information there that I was meant to do this today. I just like felt
mm,
like it. And some part of me like, hmm, I don't
mm,
know about that, bro. Maybe
mhm.
you just chill and hang out and miss this.
And then the
And another
message for
part says
today,
like,
uh,
no,
uh,
back to the podcast.
um,
Very
and you
clear.
talk about this day, the message for Wilhelm on this day
Mm-hmm.
was exactly what you're doing now, because it says potential is only a word.
Oh,
Meaning if we don't do something, we can hear
with
things
it.
and if we don't act on it, it just there's no effect. It doesn't do anything. And this is
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying. I see this all the time. People will do things. I love it when I see people like scrolling the videos on YouTube and this, that, and the other, and they think it's going to change something instead of them deciding they're going to do something.
Yeah, and that's the difference. Yes, it's what am I doing with the information,
Mhm,
right? Because the integration happens in life, in real life. Like
mhm,
it's, and I talked about this because I'm hanging out with people who are on a different trajectory as well than
mhm,
I am, right? In an entirely different focus that they have,
mhm,
right? And here and there, I go and hang out with them, old friends, and sit down and smoke a joint or have a beer. And like, I mean, for me, this is practice. For
mhm,
me, this is to practice non-judgment. This for me is to
mhm,
practice to be human, to have an intimate relationship with a person who is on a different path than I am,
mhm.
but on the same path on some level as well, because in the heart is where we all meet.
Welcome.
And I feel the guru saying for a few months ago, and this just got me the confirmation about what I was doing because I was kind of falling back into self-judgment and
Yeah.
am I supposed to hang out with those people? And I don't know, but something was pulling me there and
Mhm.
something was saying, fuck no, right? And there's like this battle between those two sides, basically. And this guru said, if you really think that you're enlightened,
Mhm.
go and hang out with people you don't like,
Mhm.
or go to people
Mhm.
or hang out with characters who challenge you,
Mhm.
because then you see how enlightened you really are.
Mhm.
And
And
this is so true.
you said the best thing ever. You didn't know why you were sitting there, except you came up with something. It was judgment, either judgment of yourself or judgment of them.
Hmm.
And that's when we can move through that, and the relationships will show up for us to look at our judgment of ourselves or of others. And when we can rise above that, then we've ascended to another state of our being. And we can let
Exactly. Yeah.
go of all of that.
And it's the same thing. Like you will meet, and I can see it from my life. Like I was meeting like 3 years ago after their accident. I just bring this example because like there so many changed after this moment
Mhm.
in time that I had to. Oh, now I lost the stream of thought. Now I had to do things differently.
Mhm.
I was isolating myself. I was kind of seeing how I can improve myself. But there was still like this, like I was more, I was running towards something, but I also was running away from something
Mhm.
instead of just simply being present
There's a
in the
difference.
moment and here and now.
Okay.
There's a different, yeah, 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 yeah.
There's a
Go for
message. There's a well-known message they gave us. It says, "Are you looking ahead or behind?"
it.
And it says, if you're looking ahead, you're not going to have any fear. You're not going to have any of that. You're going on to the next thing you're going to do in your life. And it says, so if you're feeling terrible, then you're probably looking behind, meaning that you're just judging yourself for something else that had happened before. And so, and when when you're confused
Mm,
with that, you will understand because when you're feeling terrible, you're regretting your past or what you didn't do or judging yourself or whatever, and that's why you're feeling terrible. So the more often you can look ahead, then you're on your path to be creating something.
mm.
And so,
Yeah, and this is a practice. Yeah,
mhm,
and I spend lots of time in solitude and as a hermit, and it hasn't been easy always, and lost some tears, and I was screaming, I was crying, um, and said no to things that I was saying yes to.
mhm,
And this shift that is occurring in this time on this planet,
mhm,
lots of people feel that too, that it's kind of nudging them to the edge and they kind of
yes,
have to make new
yes,
decisions.
that,
And
oh,
I want you to
thank
talk
you.
about that. I want you to talk
Mm,
about that. Like, what is, how important is it to make new decisions, to walk new ways, maybe even to go a different path to the supermarket than usual, or take a different road on the highway?
right. Because we become stuck in our old ways. And this period is helping us as individuals and also as a society to come out of old ways. This is why this work was happening. And the problem is for all of us, me especially, is that, oh, that new place is a little scary. That new place is a little uncomfortable. And so then I can acquiesce to fear and just stay where I was. But then you decide, oh, wait a minute, this feels so much better because where I was before was I was being afraid of myself. This is why I'm
Hmm.
talking about the
Are you
process.
are you telling us right now, Roger? Are you telling us right now that fear is actually moving us forward?
Yes, this is why I wrote the book, because when you understand that the fear is an illusion and that you're just being afraid of something that doesn't really exist, and then you move over it and go, oh, I feel better now. I've accessed another aspect of myself because I was willing to move beyond my fear.
Hmm. This is great, man.
Good.
Roger,
That was
thank
great.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
I wanted
you.
to answer those questions. This was a perfect opportunity.
It was. And we have it.
Yes,
We're I'm grateful, we are grateful.
yes.
And yeah.
Great.
Oh, awesome. Thanks,
Thank you
Raj.
so much, sir. Okay, I'll see you soon.
Yes.